Okay, we're going to talk some trades, but real quick, just to give a second thought on the Lowry Markkanen trade, I think I leaned a little too hard into the idea of Markkanen playing with Mobley and Allen. I think it's most likely going to be Markkanen or Mobley coming off the bench. Random NBA players I think could get traded this season. The first one, it's the thumbnail, Buddy Hield. And the reason for this is because the Kings already tried to trade him once. I mean, it did seem like for a moment it was a done deal with him going to the Lakers for, what would it have been? KCP, Kuzma. I don't know if Montrez would have been going to Sacramento there. Now, I don't think the Kings should move Buddy Hield just for the sake of doing it, but I'm just saying, they already tried to once, so who's to say they wouldn't try to do it later on in the season if they thought they were getting some good defenders, role players, pass first guys, whatever they think they might need. Now, that said, his contract is probably a little bit of an overpay, even if it does decline for the next couple of seasons, so we'll have to see if anything comes up there. From here on, it's going to be a bit more of some deep cuts. Thad Young with San Antonio. He's on a one-year deal, so it would not hurt a team long-term to take him on. And really, to me, this just matters on if Thad Young can still be a great role player, and if he can continue being the damn good passer that he was for the Bulls last season. Thad Young is, of course, not a shooter, but he cuts to the rim, he grabs offensive rebounds, he does a good job of hovering around the dunker spot without killing teams' spacing to me, and he's a good defensive player. So I could picture a good team looking to acquire him around the trade deadline. He's making about $14 million this year, and given the 125% rule, a team would have to put together a little over $11 million in salary in order to make a trade for him. Next up, we have Terrence Ross, and Terrence Ross is a bit cheaper. I also think Orlando could just hold on to Ross because they simply need a guy who can make some shots for them, but given that he is cheap and he does have that shot-making ability, same thing with Thad Young. I could picture a good team looking to take him on. His contract is also not lengthy at all. And at this point, Terrence Ross is 30, which doesn't mean he's going to fall off a cliff or anything. He should still be fine for the rest of his contract. But with Orlando, given that you got Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony, RJ Hampton, the young big guys, maybe you'd just rather get something for the 30-year-old than keep him around. But again, I don't think it hurts Orlando to just keep Ross for his shooting. But if they can get something for him, I figure it's at least worth thinking about. Next up, we've got Josh Hart, who had one of the weirdest contracts ever. It's 3 years, but only the first year is guaranteed. The second year is a non-guaranteed option. The third year is a player option. And to me, that just suggests that the Pelicans want to keep the option of trading him open. I mean, he is a good player. Sure, his shooting has not been exactly where you'd want it to be, but he's a good defender. He's a great rebounder for a guard / wing, whatever position he technically plays. And I do think there's still potential for him to develop more as a ball handler and maybe as a shooter. But again, the Pelicans gave him a contract that to me is extremely tradable. Therefore, I feel like I have to put him on the list. The next one is Serge Ibaka, and this one is dependent on Kawhi not coming back this season, or more so the Clippers getting the feeling around the deadline that Kawhi is not going to be back. And maybe at that point they would just prefer to get something for Ibaka. That said, the team could be all right without Kawhi, and maybe they would just want to maximize next season. There is also the chance of them signing Ibaka to a new deal and thinking that he can just be pretty good for them for the next couple years. Give you the shooting at center and still hold up defensively. Next up, we have Tauron Prince, who's on the T-Wolves. He's on an expiring, making about $13 million. And I put him here because Tauron has been kind of an awkward player where you'd love him to be the small ball 4 option who can shoot, he can make a play off the dribble, and he can defend and switch across positions. But his shot making has always been a little inconsistent. I think sometimes he's had trouble with just fitting into a team, and he sometimes takes it off the dribble a little bit too much. And given that I do think there's a decent amount of pressure on the T-Wolves to win, or at least see as much improvement as possible, I could picture them looking to move him if it's just not a good fit. And I could picture another team being like, well, we're the team that can finally get the right stuff out of him, you know? And finally, for our last one, we go to the Knicks, Kevin Knox, because I just don't know if the Knicks are really down to try to figure this thing out anymore. I feel like they've got a roster in place. They've signed Fournier. They, I imagine, want to develop Toppin some more. I feel like the wing positions are getting pretty crowded there for a guy like Knox, and he just might not have a place on the team anymore. And so you figure maybe a team like OKC or somebody who's not expected to win a whole lot, or maybe even a team who's kind of all right but thinks that they've got a place for him. Maybe somebody could look to take him on, and I imagine it wouldn't be much. Maybe just a second-round pick and some small salary to make the money work, and that can be that, and Kevin Knox can just get another opportunity somewhere else. For what it's worth with Knox, I think his three-point shooting has been at least kind of promising, to where maybe if he just leans all the way into that, that can be his way to stay in the league.